Dragon Dice is the greatest game ever made, and nothing that you can say will convince 10-year-old Jack Eddy otherwise. And yeah, I've been off and on obsessed with this strategic collectible dice game monstrosity since its original publication way back in the 1995 days when it was put out by TSR, but it has been kept alive by the company SFR buying it from TSR, i.e. Wizards of the Coast, i.e. Hasbro, and they've kept in print old dice, put out new dice, new races, new equipment, new rules, which is probably the most important thing because now we have a new 2-player starter set with the first edition of the 3.0 Dragon Dice rules. So we're going to be taking a look today at Dragon Dice as a whole, as well as how this 2-player starter set works as an entry point to this dice-chucking dragon mayhem. In Dragon Dice, players match equal-valued armies against one another, trying to win the game by either capturing 2 of the 3 terrains in play, or by completely eliminating your opponent's units. Each faction has several unique dice available to them, all with their own unique distributions of melee, range, save, maneuver, or magic successes, as well as its face icon depicting a rad line work caricature that counts as successes in whatever roll you're making. The size of the dice, small, medium, large, or big bad nanners, correspond to values when building your army. Typical army sizes will be around 24 to 36, but if you and your friends want to go to town with 100-point armies, by all means go for it. During setup, you'll split your armies amongst the 3 terrains in play, each player's home base and the frontier. The terrain dice have their own distribution of what actions can be taken and what sorts of magic they enhance, and the player going second gets to pick the frontier terrain. During your turn, you get to activate 2 armies at different locations, hopefully trying to maneuver up the terrain, as well as performing whatever action is on that terrain: magic, missile, or melee. Melee allows you to beat up on your opponent directly across from you at a terrain, but it leaves you vulnerable to a counterattack where they have the opportunity to hit you back for some pain. Ranged attack, which has no counterattack involved, allows you to shoot directly across or at opponents at neighboring terrains. This is a great option, but ranged successes are a little harder to get, unless you're my beautiful Amazons here, that is. And then the third option is magic, and magic has a wide array of various abilities referenced in the rulebook that are buffs and debuffs and direct attacks and movement and all kinds of cool stuff, including summoning the eponymous Dragon Dice. Once summoned, they stick around a terrain and get rolled at the beginning of everyone's turn, attacking their own army there. They wreak havoc on every single unit and are terrifying. Dragons are awesome in this game. Now, all of this is in service of 2 different things. One, if you roll a terrain up to its 8th face, then you manage to capture that terrain. That gives you a wide array of bonus abilities depending on whatever the 8th face icon is, and also allows you to select what your action is for the turn. You want to do magic, great. If you want to melee, also great. And of course, if you're Amazons, you're always going to want to range attack. Now, the second reason why you're trying to do all this is that the more units of your opponents that you kill, then the less power that they have to do anything to oppose you. And if you manage to kill every single one of your opponent's units, then that is a second victory condition for you to lord over them and laugh in their face. Good game, Dragon Dice players. There are plenty of more strategic elements to take into account, like what special action icons are on your bigger dice, kind of like special abilities that trigger during certain rolls, or retreating units into your reserves only to send them back out into a more concentrated force on later turns, to all sorts of buffs, debuffs, summoning, and general shenanigans that come out of using magic. For just being hordes and hordes of polyhedrals, there's a lot of stuff packed into Dragon Dice. The 3 greatest things about Dragon Dice are, first off, rolling handfuls of dice. It feels really, really good to just chuck all these dice that are awesome custom dice with all kinds of cool iconography on them, full of flavor, bringing out the thematic elements of the world. I mean, it totally captured my heart as a kid to have these lava elves here that have little flintlock pistols as their ranged attack icons. How freaking cool is that? The second thing that I love about Dragon Dice is assembling your armies is where you get all kinds of strategic value in the game. Not to say that it's on autopilot when you're playing. There's plenty of choices there. But thinking about your race and how their icons are distributed, what their strengths are, their weaknesses are, that's where a lot of the fun and meat of the game is. And I didn't even mention earlier how each race has some sort of default built-in power that makes them unique and special. Like the Amazons here on certain terrains, they get to count their maneuver icons as range attack icons, or the Feral, who get to revitalize every turn and bring in dead units back into their army, or my wonderful Firewalkers here, who count their shields as melee attacks on melee rolls. It gives you all kinds of direction to play with. The third thing that I love about Dragon Dice is the importance of tactics over strategy. In this game, you're constantly going to be evaluating the board and making decisions based off of what is most advantageous at this moment rather than what your game plan was going in at the beginning. And that's going to be something that's inherent to any game that relies entirely on dice to determine where the state of everything is. But you can account for some probabilities, and you can make cool moment-to-moment decisions that impact the game. Now, that said, there are some reasons why Dragon Dice isn't the talk of the town at every tabletop gaming convention to date. For some people, the luck factor is going to be incredibly frustrating and an absolute deal breaker in this game. There are going to be times where you get really bad rolls, or your opponent gets really good rolls, and it could even happen in succession. Now, there are plenty of ways to mitigate that. Probabilities try to make sure that the right armies are doing the right thing, but this is a game with a lot of luck involved. And if you can't roll with the punches on that, then you're probably going to have a bad time. Second, remember those tactical decisions I was mentioning earlier? Well, there is the opportunity in this game to gather up your entire army at one location, raising the face to 8, and then just hopefully waiting it out as you send dragons to your opponents. And if both players are doing this, then it can kind of create this game of attrition and a stalemate that's just waiting around for one person to get really bad rolls. And the last thing, was I mentioning luck earlier? Because luck is the word that you could use to describe your packs of Dragon Dice as you are buying them. Yeah, they are specifically affiliated with races, and you are going to get certain distributions of the levels of dice within, but otherwise it is luck that determines what dice you're actually getting there. And when you're building your awesome undead army and you're just wanting more Draco Liches in order to put in there because it would be an awesome addition to that killer army, well, you're going to have to buy a lot of undead packs in order to try and pull enough Draco Liches to meet your needs. And this is 2018. There's better ways of distributing dice because I don't have unlimited time, money, or energy to dedicate to one single game. I just want to know that I have the comfort of getting that Draco Lich when I buy a specific pack. Let's figure out a better way to do this, SFR. Whew, now that we know a thing or two about Dragon Dice, we can actually get into what's going on with this 2-player starter entry pack. In the box, you get some pretty player mats that I could see being totally helpful for beginners, though admittingly, I never use them outside of teaching the game because I'm old school and like the dice on table look. You also get a really interesting matchup of Firewalkers and Tree Folk, 2 of the most distinctive factions in the game. You also get 4 dragons to summon to your heart's content, 4 terrains, and most importantly, this rulebook. You know, when I was a kid, I didn't really know how to play Dragon Dice. Well, I kinda knew, but mainly I just really liked awesome fantasy dice in this cool fantasy world and just kind of fudged my way through it with my friends. Now, when I came back to the game about 7 or 8 years ago, SFR had already put out its 2.0 rules in this black and white monstrosity, a kind of Bible of Dragon Dice with every single individual little rule and every single icon that's ever been printed on dice referenced in this bad boy. It was insane, and you had to have real grit and willpower in order to persevere and learn how to play Dragon Dice, which I did, and it was worth it. but that is going to be a major roadblock and, I guess, turnoff for a lot of people. But now with the Dragon Dice 3.0 rules published by SFR, they have a beautiful, colorful rulebook with all kinds of illustrations that are intuitive and smart and a great way to pick up and learn how to play this game. This is a great entry point with everything that you need to know, with only the icons that could specifically be put onto the dice associated with the two races within. This is a great learn to play guide that's written for human beings to learn how to play a game. Except one of the coolest things about Dragon Dice is the races and building your armies. That's thematic but also strategic, and the racial abilities are what give you enough little thrust and direction in the game. And the racial abilities for the tree folk and firewalkers are not in here. They were determined to be too advanced for the learn to play guide, which I think is kind of a mistake because they're only like a paragraph long at most, and they could have been put in the back as an after the first game try out the racial abilities for each of the races contained within, because that's what gives them distinguishing flavor and personality and enough little thrust that you could imagine how you're going to construct your armies around the strengths and weaknesses of each of the different residents of Elsfra, whatever the world of Dragon Dice is. But I do recognize that they say that you can get the full rules available on their website, and they do put them out there for free. So I encourage anyone picking up this 2-player starter set, which is the greatest entry point to Dragon Dice that has yet to be made, and you promptly go online, you find the racial abilities, and you begin playing with them, because that's a big part of the cool factor in Dragon Dice. I really like Dragon Dice, and while my interest in actually playing the game kind of ebbs and flows over time, it does always have a special place in my heart and in the freaking pantheon of gaming history. No, it doesn't feel like a modern game. It's still essentially the same game that was originally released in 1995, except with all kinds of new dice and components and support available to it. But at its core, for all of its lack of innovation, it still is strategic, engaging, and fun. As far as the 2-player starter set goes, yeah, I wish they included the racial powers, and yeah, I wish that it weren't sold in blind boxes where you were tracing down the rares that you really wanted to get. But this is honestly the best entry point with the best learn to play rules that has ever existed in Dragon Dice. So if you're just wanting to chuck some dice and have an awesome time with these killer little polyhedrals, then this is going to be the set to get into it. So that is the Cardboard Herald's review of Dragon Dice by SFR. What did you think of the review? Have you ever played the game? What are your thoughts on the game? Share in the comments below. As far as the Cardboard Herald goes, we have all kinds of other reviews, recommendations, interviews on our site, cardboardherald.com, as well as the YouTube channel here, so be sure to subscribe. If you are interested in Dragon Dice, we recently did an interview with President of SFR, Chuck Pint, which you can find on iTunes, Stitcher, and www.cardboardherald.com.